Welcome to Let's Talk.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Of course, of course. We mentioned at the top a little bit just about what Navigator Research does, but you specifically work as the director of polling and analytics. I wonder, how does polling and analytics fit into coalition building and grassroots organizations?
Yeah, I think it's a critical part of coalition building and kind of talking to the electorate, organizations, to the people. I think a lot of times we look at polling and analytics, and those sound like very scientific or cold words. But I truly think it's the only way you can talk to people at scale and have a conversation at scale, right? Like publications like yours can talk to people at scale, but when you're doing messaging and really trying to get the best results from the people, you have to have a conversation. And I believe where polling slots in well. It's the ground truth of what the most people think, and you're trying to be the most representative and engaging. You have to talk to the people, and we do that through polling.
Yeah. Well, I guess, I'm assuming, like you said, you talk to a lot of people, and here we're having a conversation today about young people's politics and how young people might be thinking about this, political moment. I wonder, over the course of your career doing analytics, working with polls, talking to people, having those conversations, what kinds of insights have you learned about young people and how they engage with politics?
Yeah, the first thing I'll say is young folks are there's kind of like two things when you're thinking about young folks and engaging them with politics. One, as time goes on, um, in my view, Republicans more and more kind of push to raise that barrier of entry for voting, for civic engagement, where young folks are excited and see their future at stake. We have to make sure that we get folks registered, we get folks out knowing exactly where their polling spot is, especially when folks are kind of out of state on campus. Like that's one like a organizational, physical, logistical hurdle that we have to overcome when we're talking about engaging folks who just turned 18 or 21 and are starting to really engage into taking control of their future. But two, I say in my experience, young folks' votes are earned and not given. They're not as locked into kind of an historical understanding or loyalty or ideal of political parties. They have issues that they truly care about. And if you're not able to deliver a succinct message of how exactly you will take care of those issues, um, you can kind of fall behind among a younger electorate. With that being said, I do think sometimes in the political sphere, messengers and advocates kind of look at young people as an enigma when they're just people, right? Young people, just like the elderly, just like Black folks, Latino folks, we all have like an issue set that we care about. And a lot of the times it's a common issue set, right? Like we need to pay rent, we need to put food on the table, we have student loans that are overbearing, um, and we're worried about whether or not we'll have a planet in 60 years. Um, and if you talk to young folks like people and don't try to silo them, saying like they don't care about taxes or they don't care about the economy, they only care about climate and student loans, you're really missing the bigger picture. Young folks are people and they have the same political issues as everybody else, but the stakes are higher because their long term horizon is much longer.
Yeah, I appreciate what you said there, especially that second point that, young folks are earned and not given. That was something that we've sort of been hearing a lot in this sort of campaign cycle, specifically about the fact that people have been saying for years. I think it's this kind of phrase that like in politics and when you're campaigning, you can sort of depend on demographics to vote a certain way. So Democrats can sort of almost depend on the black vote or black women, or Republicans can sort of depend on the working class white voters in the Midwest or in the South. But this race, especially before Biden dropped out, um, those I guess statistics and those demographics weren't very dependable, especially when it came to young people, young voters, young Black voters, young Hispanic voters were starting to sort of stray away, or at least polling showed, were starting to sort of stray away from the Democratic Party, and that those votes weren't as locked in as previously believed. And that sort of gets to your point there, is that, you have to be able to earn these votes. You can't just depend on that these people will vote for you, just because
Absolutely.
if they're part of a certain demographic. And so I guess I wonder with that though, because since Biden dropped out of the race, there's been some changes, and I guess, in how people are feeling about this, and feeling about this campaign. And I wonder, how have you seen in your polling? If I don't know if the Navigator Research has done polling since Biden left and Kamala has now become sort of the presumptive nominee. But I guess, how have you seen young people react to this moment in the numbers and in the polling and in the analytics?
Yeah, I would say that the whole kind of phenomenon of Joe Biden dropping out, Kamala Harris picking up the nomination, is just very unique and a groundswell moment that I think we will still see shifts to come. Um, but it also highlights the moment we're at beyond young people, broadly politically, in the nation right now. What we saw in the data was not necessarily huge shifts in um kind of ideological swings, right? There wasn't like a huge bevy of, say, young Republicans coming over to Kamala. But we did see a huge uptick in excitement, in motivation to vote, in enthusiasm, in a purpose to vote. And those are the things that win you elections, right? In the 2022 election, after the Dobbs decision and after the Supreme Court put a women's right to abortion fundamentally at risk, we saw a groundswell again in that enthusiasm, in that purpose. And I think we're seeing a similar phenomenon in this shift. Again, don't want to speak too early, but that's where we're seeing the most difference. I think that Kamala has really energized this race, and I think that she will be able to kind of go out there and deliver kind of a message to those younger folks, an Obama-esque message of change, forward looking. Um, and I think it will be powerful. But as far as like what I've seen there, that's what I've seen. Generally, we did see some sort of straying away from Joe Biden towards the later end of the race, especially post debate. Um, but what we're really seeing is people staying in their camps, but the Democratic base being much more energized.
Yeah, that was something that I thought about too. I don't know if you saw that clip of Kamala Harris in Atlanta where she was at that rally in Atlanta. There were, I don't want to give a number, but there were tons of people there, and the crowd
Yeah.
was just insane, and you could just feel that energy shift. Put that next to a clip of a Joe Biden rally, and the energy is a little bit different. The excitement is a little bit different. But that also makes me think about, this almost the entire race. Joe Biden sort of campaigned on saying that he was a transitional candidate, that he was going to be the candidate that was going to bridge the gap to the next generation. And it wasn't very clear, especially before maybe a month ago, that he was going to drop out, especially before the debate, a little bit after the debate as well. And people have been saying this whole race that they want new energy, that they want, something new in this race. It was pretty much just a rematch of 2020, and so I wonder, how can Kamala Harris, or how can, I guess, any candidate, sort of seize this moment of new excitement, of new energy, and earn those votes, to your point about earning votes from the young people?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of it is about kind of being that figurehead and spurring forward kind of this energy into the policy that we want to see, right? Continuing to give Joe Biden his credit, Joe Biden's good work on alleviating some of the pain of student loans, right? Continuing to be a progressive administration and kind of leaning on the accomplishments that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have done already. They've done so much. and pointing building using that as a springboard to building out a path to the future. Um, I do think that Kamala has a great opportunity to again embrace that younger demographic as we move forward, millennial and Gen Z. One, as somebody in this world, a lot of the kind of political infrastructure is run now by millennial and Gen Z folks who are energized, right? The organizing and advocacy movement has always been a young, vibrant movement. And I think this kind of new look, new energy fits that well and it melds well. But again, I think it's about earning it, right? And I think she's doing just that with her plans on energy, her push forward to kind of making the union more fair, doing the biggest campaign rally in Atlanta I've seen anybody do, right? Bring out Megan the Stallion and Quavo. I'm not like super big into to only doing symbolic things, but that is an authentic symbol of what's to come, right? I think authenticity is big, and you can feel it there, and I think that's exciting. But we always have to remind ourselves that that millennial, Gen Z, that younger voter has seen a lot, and they can see past kind of smoke and mirrors. We got to really deliver and earn it here.
Mhm. And to your point there, it's not Gen Z can see through smoke and mirrors. It's again, it's about earning this vote, not just thinking that you can rely on it. So I wonder, like, is it all about messaging, or are there specific ways that maybe you have learned through the data that you collect through polls, or that you have just seen through the work that you've done with campaigns, that campaigns can use to meet young people where they are? Like, I mean, we saw Kamala Harris's team, sort of seize on the moment, on the brat moment, and do that whole thing. So, are there specific tactics, methods, or anything that these campaigns can do to actually do that besides just, besides the messaging?
Yeah, I think viral campaigning and making online moments is something I'm not an expert in, but I have seen it kind of Uh, I am 29, about to turn 30, right? So I consider myself young, but I've also been in the campaign game since 2016. You've seen kind of virality take place, kind of memes blow up, but they usually don't translate to the ground. Um, but 2024 feels different, right? Um, this kind of brat meme is turned into like a symbol of the campaign, the coconut, the context in which all we live. These are kind of like symbols and like levity to a dark situation, but also kind of represent the connection the campaign has with their people. I think that's super important, and I want to see how important it ends up being, right? Like nobody's done this. The Trump campaign, when they won in 2016, did have this online presence, but it was much darker, much more 4chan. This seems to have a bit more levity to it. The second part, which is going to be always and forever, from the civil rights movement till now, is ground organizing, um, and people getting out there. Like the campaign is going to try to activate young folks and meet them where they're at. Young folks have to meet themselves where they're at too and get out there, right? Get outside, go put on a t-shirt, bring a bottle of water, go knock some doors, go talk to your friends on campus. I know coming up until this moment, we were kind of in a down place and it seemed like a lot of everything that could go wrong was going wrong. I think you have to take those moments and turn them into positivity and kind of put yourself out there. Human to human interaction is always going to and forever going to be the main interaction that wins or loses election and creates political change. Advocacy for yourself is the most powerful advocacy. Not even the president can advocate as much as a movement can, right? Especially a movement of real people on the ground talking person to person. So I think that's going to be extremely important.
Definitely, especially I think a through line sort of through this entire conversation, whether it's young people connecting to politicians or politicians, needing to win an election. It's the human connection, it's the authenticity to real people on the ground, that's going to get you those votes. That's going to make you actually want to believe in someone that this person can be my president. I can have faith that they can do the work that I'm looking for in my president. And just one thing that when you were talking about the 2016 campaign versus this one, it made me think about the clip of Hillary Clinton when she was like, we got to make them go to the polls versus, Kamala Harris sort of seizing and, a clip of her talking about what did she say in Atlanta? She was like, Donald Trump, what's the saying? If you have something to say it to my face, right? These two kinds of moments, they feel very different.
Yeah.
Uh, Clinton, it kind of felt maybe a little forced and maybe not authentic. But
Yeah.
Kamala Harris and what she's doing with her campaign, sort of seizing this moment, it kind of does feel a little authentic. And especially with the crowd that she was at, it felt very black as well. And that's, going to be another part of the conversation in the coming weeks, given everything that happened this past week with Donald Trump and ABJ. But Ian Smith, I really appreciate you for coming on and talking to us today. You're the director of Polling and Analytics at Navigator Research and the Hub Project. I wonder if you can, where can we, find the work that you're doing? How can young people get involved with the work that you're doing? Yeah.
Yeah. You can find my work and my team's work at navigatorresearch.org. I would highly encourage everybody to sign up for our newsletter. About 3 days a week, we put out what's called a 5:45 in the morning email about kind of the latest research we're doing and kind of really digging into where Americans are on policy issues and what messaging is landing. You do not have to wake up at 5:45 to read it. Read it whenever you want. And specifically engaging with me, Navigator has Navigator Survey on both Instagram and Twitter. If you want to check out some videos that I'm in, some funny videos we do from time to time. But on top of all that, go find a candidate that's local that you're prideful in. Go find your local student union, engage your friends, your family, um, and do the work to the people with the people closest to you.
Ian, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.